listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Burl Workman here, Big V with Workman Success Systems. We appreciate you being on the call today, and we're excited to talk about RISmedia's ACE Broker Best Practices webinar series. And today's topic is a phenomenal topic on change management. One thing we all know is that that's a consistent in all of our business. My dad used to say that all progress is a result of change. And if you're not changing, you're not adapting, you're not trying new things, then you're never going to have progress. So this initiative and this webinar today is timely, and it appeals to pretty much anybody that is in business that wants to have progress. Just a couple of housekeeping issues while we're on the call today. If you have questions for any of our guests, and we have 3 great panelists today, look at your control panel where it says questions and just type in your question there. Throughout the webinar, I'll be monitoring those and answering those questions and asking our panelists of those questions. So if you have a specific question for Angela or for Kiwa or for Leanne, just type in there and type in their name, and I'll make sure I ask them directly of the question, what that question is. Also, stay on the end till the end of the webinar. At the end of every one of these webinars, we always have valuable information and some free downloads. We just want to let you know that that will also be the case today, where you'll be able to get some really great strategies and information on how to have a successful adoption strategy of whatever technology platform it is you want to bring into your company. I want to first do a brief introduction, then we're going to bring him back later as a guest, to Kiwa Chung. Kiwa is the head of real estate consumer success at DocuSign. Now, that's a cool title, Kiwa. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate DocuSign as a partner in helping us put on this webinar today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what's new and exciting in the world of DocuSign? Is there anything specific you want to just give us a snapshot on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always obviously innovating as a company, but we are up and coming a new release of the DocuSign transactions that we'll talk a little bit about today, and it actually drives a bit of Lone Wolf integration. So those brokerages that are using Lone Wolf, there's some cool features that we're allowing the ability within DocuSign to push and pull information directly from it. So lots of things.
Well, I love that and look forward to hearing more about it. And thank you for being a partner in this great webinar. So our first guest today is Angela. It's Angela. I don't want to hurt your name. Is it Angela Robb?
It's Rab.
Rab. Dang it! I knew that. Okay, it's Angela Rab with Tucker Real Estate Group, and we're excited that she's here today. She's the director of agent development and technology advancement for the FC Tucker Company. And Angela, not only is she passionate, but she believes in the power of agent development through her mission of spreading wealth, enthusiasm, kindness, knowledge, and financial. And I think those are great core values, and I love that that's part of her description. Her development philosophy centers around finding each agent's start button and then helping them find out their core motivating value, their real why, and then creating really fun, engaging learning experiences rooted in enthusiasm and fundamental sales competencies. And I have to tell you that in my first interview with Angela, everything that's in her bio as we talk about her enthusiasm and her passion for helping people actually adopt and incorporate systems and technology is real. And it's more who she is as a person that helps her be so successful in her role. And Angela, thank you for being here, and I'm glad you've got the time to share with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Angela, we want to talk. First of all, you've had lots of different. What are some of the launches that you've been a part of with FC Tucker?
Several. So we launched 2 transaction management systems in the last 3 years. We are currently using DocuSign, so that was quite a big undertaking. And we've launched several learning initiatives across our company, both technology-based and not technology-based. I took over this position about 2 years ago, and we kind of took it down to the studs and rebuilt the entire program and launched it throughout the company, and we're really excited about the things we're doing here.
Well, that's exciting, and it's fun to have people that have some experience. I like to tell my people it's okay if we fail up, meaning when we do something it doesn't work as well as we thought it should. If we learn from it and the next time we do the implementation we're better at it, then it's progress.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Talk to me about the cheerleader concept.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important indicators of whether a project is going to be successful or not when you're making a change is the person that's leading it. Like, that's not a big secret, right? But here's the thing. So many companies assign projects to people because maybe they fit in the department, or nobody stepped up to do it, or they're just the next person up. And I feel like that's the wrong approach, because whoever is excited about the product should be the one that leads it and should be the one that is the biggest cheerleader. You can put out all of the training that you want, but if nobody's excited about it, they're not going to come. So you have to have somebody who is enthusiastic about it, and who is so enthusiastic about it that during the process of change, they just keep taking the hits, because there will be hits when you make a change, and they just keep on trucking, and their enthusiasm overcomes the hit. And we call that person the cheerleader here.
And so so is it different people for different projects, or is it always the same person?
No, it's different people for different projects. You've got to find who's excited about that product, who really understands how it's going to help your organization or your agent or your end client, the consumer. Somebody who really understands how awesome it's going to be once you're through the change process, so that they can weather the storm that comes with any change.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I've seen people in companies that are great cheerleaders, but they don't have the credibility, and nobody will listen to them. So you have to add credibility to that. So they have to be people that have influence and are cheerleaders.
Right, right. Or pair them up. I mean, there's nothing to say that you have somebody who has a lot of credibility, but somebody who's wildly enthusiastic about the product. Pair them up, because they're going to be a better team than one without the other.
So let's talk a little bit about your latest integration, and we use DocuSign because that's not because they're a sponsor as much as because that's the most recent integration that you've had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And let's kind of talk about some of the challenges and things that you did, and how did we, how we created this successful integration.
Yeah, so for us, one of the big challenges was that we already had instituted a transaction management system, and now we were making a major change to DocuSign. So for our agents, we had gone through kind of the pain of paperless paper to paperless, but now we have agents who are very comfortable with one system, and we're asking them to change to another system. And from the beginning, we said we want to have this have as minimal of an impact on our agents' day-to-day workings as it possibly can. And that's a tall order, because we have big producers who all they want to do is sell. They say to us, we hear over and over and over again that, I just want to be out there selling. I'm a real estate agent. I don't want to spend time learning this technology. So the very first thing that you have to do is clearly articulate why you're making the change. That's number one. And you cannot over-communicate this point. You're going to feel like you've said it so many times that your ears are going to bleed. But what I will say is, in the absence of communication, there's going to be a void, and the thing that naturally fills that void is negativity. So you have to work your best to avoid having a void where negativity can grow, and you can only do that by over-communicating way more than you ever thought you needed to. And in many ways, you have to communicate not just in email. You got to throw in video. You got to throw in text messages. You've got to throw in person-to-person at sales meetings, and anywhere you're interacting with agents, you should be incorporating some element of this change into that communication, so that your agents are hearing that constant communication of why you're making the change.
Can you over-communicate? Have you ever been,
no.
Is that possible?
No, you can't. You can't. You really can't. We think we can, but you can't.
When we've rolled, I was going to ask you, when we've rolled out different things to companies, we kind of put them in categories, right, of different types of people. How do you identify and how do you appeal to the different types of learners when you're rolling something like this out?
Yeah, for us, when we make a technology change, we really think there's two general categories of agents. There are the agents who really understand how the technology works, and there are the agents that can follow the directions you give them. And these are distinct populations with not a lot of overlap. So the agents who really understand how technology works, they want you to get the information to them in a very fast, lean, and agile way, and then they want you to give them the product. They'll play with it. They'll go figure it out. If they get stuck, they'll go find a YouTube video to get themselves unstuck. Those agents, you kind of have to get them excited and then let them go with some simplified instructions, because they don't have the patience to go through a 112-page manual, right?
Right.
But then our direction followers are a whole different category, because they can follow the directions that you give them, but they need to be written, absolutely. They have to be broken down into the smallest steps. So the first time we rolled out a transaction management system, one of the mistakes that we learned from is that we were losing people during the class because we weren't saying things like, look over on the right side of your screen for the gray slider bar, put your mouse on the gray slider bar, and scroll up to the top. So when I say baby steps, this class of agents needs baby steps to that degree. And you'd be shocked, like when you start incorporating those types of baby steps, they stay with the class. They don't fall behind, and then they don't get frustrated. And then they need great specificity. So we found when we sent the DocuSign manual that DocuSign produces to our Understand How Tech Works group, they could adapt. If there was a different color or there was a slightly different step because we named something different than was named in the DocuSign manual, they could get through that. But the agents where they follow directions, if there was even the smallest deviation between our manual and what they were seeing on the screen, they were done. It was over. Like they were lost. So we found really breaking our communication and our learning tools up for these two different categories of learners was huge in our success of the second rollout. It was a learning opportunity for our first rollout.
And so by just putting them into two categories and saying, okay, either you're going to be a quick adapter and you're going to figure it out yourself, or you're going to come with a step-by-step training class, that solved all the problems, and it just everybody bought right in, and it was a huge launch.
It was. You know, we feel like it was successful, but it did take a little bit of a process to get through the entire change process.
So I love this. I love this chart, the change curve, and the emotions that people go through when you're trying to put anything with change in there. Take us kind of through what this means and how you applied action to the different cycle.
Right. So this is the change curve, and this was a communication tool for us actually, because we charted where every group was through this. But these actually mimic the stages of grief. But this is literally the emotional journey that agents go through for any change that you make in your organization. So first there's kind of a shock, like, whoa, what? We're changing stuff? And then there's denial, where agents are like, oh, that's not, we know the deadline's next week, but it'll get pushed back, you know? And then they get angry about it because they're like, well, what we used to do was working just fine. And then they go through depression, where they're like, wow, this is terrible. This was the worst choice the company's ever made in the existence of all companies. And then they start to get more comfortable. They move into acceptance, where they're like, okay, I better just do it. And then integration truly comes when they understand that this is making their lives better and the lives of their clients better.
I think there's an overlay to this slide. I want to make sure that I show that.
Mm-hmm. So the important thing about the change curve is that you cannot skip these stages. Everybody goes through these stages. Some go through more quickly than others, but you will never go straight from shock to integration. You have to allow your agents the opportunity to go through all these stages and to feel like they're heard in every stage.
So Cleve asked a question that he said, how do you keep from wanting to kill the agents during the anger and depression cycle so that you can get them through the acceptance and integration?
Yeah, well, I think that goes back to having the cheerleader, right? You have to have that person that so believes in this product that they can get the agents through it just by repeating the words, I understand, it's going to be okay, we're going to get you to the other side. Like those three statements help agents move through those. Just, I understand, we're going to get you through to the other side. I think that's so helpful, even though it seems like such a small thing.
Yeah. Let me bring the
and I
next
think we have
overlay up.
one more. Yep. The next thing to understand about the change curve really is that you're going to have a lot of different groups go through this curve at different times. So whoever your admin is, whoever is in charge of it, is going to move through this curve pretty quickly. Then for us, our branch managers came shortly after that. Then we had our branch staff, and then we have 4 groups of agents. The innovators are the ones who are like on board really before you even roll it out. You know, they're the ones that are like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. They move through pretty quickly. Your early adopters follow up also, and those are normally your more tech-savvy agents. So those kind of move through. But then your last 2, which are the sustainers and the status quo. So sustainers are the ones that are your late adopters, and they might be late because maybe they were really busy and they couldn't take your classes, or they may be late because, you know, they're just not as comfortable with tech. So they'll eventually get through the curve. Your status quo are like the last stubborn bunch. So for us, we moved between February and really by July, we had 80% of our agents voluntarily on board. But the last 20%, the status quo, some of which, by the way, we're still using typewriters and using pen and paper, the status quo is the group that takes the longest to get through this curve. And sometimes you have to be okay with them not hopping on board. You just have to be okay with it. And you have to make
okay, I gotta pause for just a second, because you actually said typewriter.
Yeah.
Can you still get those?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I made a recommendation to everybody not too long ago. But, you know, who, by the way, does a ton of business, that system works for him, and we're partners with him. So we're not in the business of telling him what he has to do for him to be successful. So, you know, some of those agents, you have to be okay. So we have 100% of our transactions in DocuSign right now, as well as our onboarding and our HR, all of that's in DocuSign. But right now, we're at about 90% adoption. And the other 10%, we'll meet them where we are and get them to where they need to be if they want to be. And the rest, it's okay. You know, we'll accommodate them too.
I think that's a really great way to that's a great company culture. You know, you're going to lead them, you're going to make it available to them, you're going to teach them how to do it, you're going to eliminate all their excuses, and if they still don't want to do it, we love them anyway because they're part of the family. I love that. I love that culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you switched from one digital transaction manager to another, what are some of the things you were looking for differently? How did you end up with DocuSign?
For us, it was really important to us that our agents could be paperless and mobile. The benefits that we're moving towards to being paperless and mobile for us is on a financial level, we feel like having that type of workforce will allow us to have more agents per desk. And as we're redesigning some of our facilities, the facilities have a smaller bricks and mortar square footage. It's allowing us to have fun spaces, you know, like a big central coffee area, as opposed to, you know, private offices. So currently we're building a new office on the north side of town. For 187 agents, there's only going to be 10 offices, 10 private offices, and everything else is going to be open concept. So
this, as a side note, there's a lot of interest in this new cafe-style collaborative work environment. Are there resources that you found that were helpful in trying to identify how you wanted to lay out your office?
I think for us, it was just visiting other offices. We visited Eddie Halliday in Texas. They have some really great concepts incorporated into their offices. We visited Baird & Warner in Chicago. So we found just going out and visiting some real estate offices that had recently redesigned was extraordinarily helpful. And then, of course, picking a designer who has experience with open concept was helpful.
Very, very cool. So it sounds like a very successful successful adoption from the DocuSign perspective. As you were taking the company through it, maybe you could just identify some of the barriers, some of the challenges specifically that you ran into, and then how we dealt with them.
Sure, sure. I think some of the barriers, for sure, one of the big ones for us was making our branch managers and our branch staff comfortable, because obviously they were having to work into the old, they were having to work in the old system right up until the day we switched. And then we did a small period where they were working in both systems while we transitioned, and that's hard for branch managers and branch staff. In our office, you know, we are very agent-centric, and we're very agent service oriented. So during that short time frame when we were working out of both systems, it was hard to look our agents in the face and say, we maybe can't do your flyers today because we're doing a DocuSign retreat. That's a hard thing for our branch managers and our branch staff to feel like they have to say no. And we had to really work on our communication with those branch managers and the branch staff, because for us, for this transition, because we felt like our agents were comparing DocuSign to the last system, that we really needed to always be available when they had a question. And the only way we could do that is if our branch managers and our branch staff were as comfortable as I was with the system. And I think, you know, it's funny, the DocuSign support people, which are really great, will tell you that a lot of times, like if a branch manager or branch staff calls them, most of the time right now, it's kind of a problem that has to be solved on the back end. It's rare for, I think, our branch managers or branch staff at this point to call and ask a question that, you know, is kind of an easy support question, because they're now so comfortable with the system that in each individual office, which we have 15, they're the people that our agents can go to for immediate help.
Have you tried implementations like this where the entire company is not involved, only portions of the company are? And how do you, and this is a curiosity question, and as you do that, how do you keep everybody happy and not feel like some of them aren't being left out because they're not part of this test program or the initial phase?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, we don't really find that to be too big of an issue, because for us, when we tend to do tests or focus groups, we really put a call out to everybody. We rarely will put together our own group. Now, we might send a special invitation out to certain people that we feel like really should be there, but by and large, we put the call out to the whole company, and we find that if they feel like they're a stakeholder, they show up, and if they don't feel like they have a dog in that fight, then they stay home, and that's okay. So we find by just opening it all the way up, we've never been overwhelmed with a group. We feel like it's a good thing for everybody involved when they feel included.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Great thoughts. I want to jump over to Leanne real quick. Will you stay online with us, and I'll probably come back to some other questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us your adoption strategy. I next want to introduce Leanne. It's Leanne Forsey with Dilbeck Real Estate. And Leanne's been with Dilbeck for almost 6 years now. And if you don't know who Dilbeck is, they're a family-owned and operated real estate brokerage located in LA County in Los Angeles. And they're a medium-sized brokerage with about 14 offices and over 600 agents. And she's done a lot of things, you know, starting with transaction coordinator and office administrator. Now she's currently the account administrator for a variety of platforms that Dilbeck incorporates and uses to create more productive agents, including DocuSign and DocuSign transaction rooms. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about those today. But she's responsible for vetting and beta testing and figuring out whether or not we're going to do things and then implementing them company-wide with the platforms and the training supports and staff of all the agents. So, Leanne, you've got quite a job description. There's a lot going on in your world.
But I love every minute of it.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. So kind of take us through your adoption process and what you take people through when it's time to, launch a new program.
So similar to Angela, we just recently went through a paperless transaction management platform change. We had been with another product, and we had been with it for quite some time, but never really rolled it out past 1 or 2 offices. We had them kind of working the process. Hey, is this going to work? Is this going to work? And trying to make changes, and it never got past those 2 offices. So when we decided that we really were going to truly go paperless, the key to making it successful is we knew someone really needed to own it from beginning to end, what we call from the womb to the tomb. Like, you had to know it from the very beginning all the way through. And like Angela said earlier, you have to pick the right person. It may not be the most knowledgeable person, but it has to be someone who's passionate about what they're doing and who can be forward-thinking enough to problem-solve the situations that may occur as they come along the way and have the patience to be able to walk everyone through it. So identifying that person was key to making this our successful integration work.
So let me pause here for just a second, because that seems like such a basic thing. Find someone who's going to be the champion. I think everybody on the call is going to say, oh, yeah, we do that. But how do you really identify the right person who really will own it versus the one who says they're going to own it?
Right.
And doesn't?
So I think you have to ask a lot of key questions. One, they have to be, like Angela said, you have to have that cheerleader, that person who really does believe in what they are doing. Oftentimes, I think we tend to take people who, you know what, this person is great at this. This person's a tech person, they get IT. That's great. But can they translate IT into verbiage and an understanding that everyone across the board is going to understand? So you have to have really that very broad understanding and really understand how people think, how people work. You have to understand your company as a whole and what your value proposition is so that you can incorporate that into how you are training people. It really is coming down to knowing the people that you are working with and knowing the product. And when you find someone who fully understands that and then can take that information and put it into terminology that the mass will understand, that's what's going to make it successful. And then a lot of times that's where we miss it. It's, I don't know how many times I've heard this saying, those who can't do, teach. And it's true. There are a lot of people out there who may be great at what they're doing, but they can't necessarily teach it to others.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And there's some that are, and some people are really great teachers, and it's great to have them in that role.
Yes, and you know what? They can't execute something for the life of them. I mean, you really have to have a teacher's heart in order to take on a project like this.
So talk to me about your strategic plan and the process you go through in thinking of it from you said womb to tomb. I've heard cradle to grave. I love womb to tomb because it rhymes.
Yeah, so what we did was we started with a core group of people that we said, okay, we know we need to make a change. What is that change going to be? What product are we going to use? So we had a core group of people, and what worked for us is we took people from every single different group in our company. We had agents in there, we had IT in there, we had support staff in there, we had managers in there, we had accounting in there, we had marketing, we had a variety of people from every avenue of our company sit in for the beta test or for the demos, and kind of went through and had them show us all the different demos, beginning to end, this is what we can provide. And we kind of went through as a group and ranked them. And in the end, we ended up choosing DocuSign transaction rooms. We then used kind of that core group of people when identifying who was going to be the account administrator and own the product. So I ended up taking on that responsibility, and I decided that, okay, from this point forward, I have to have a very precise plan of how this is going to work. So what we did is we started out with, you definitely had to have communication with your team, your immediate team, the realtors, everyone involved had to know where we were starting. So we did that. We rolled it out in phases, which was another key part of the strategic planning. And the key to that was beta testing. You really have to work out all of the bugs before you roll it out to everyone. So we had 2 offices who did beta testing.
There's always bugs. Yeah, there's always bugs.
Yes, there's always bugs. And I will say this, I will tell you, DocuSign and the people over there have done a fabulous job with helping us work through these bugs. They really were amazing. Anytime we had an issue, they were right there willing to help us either problem solve it or escalate it. It really was. It made our job of beta testing much easier. And we did get a lot of the bugs and fixes before we started rolling it out. We had also decided that rolling it out company-wide was not the way to go at the beginning. So we made a conscious choice to start with one of our offices, and we have 14 offices. So other than the 2 who beta tested, that left us 12 offices that we had to roll this out to. And we just started with one office, rolled it out to the entire staff, and let the staff work in the platform first before we incorporated the agents. And we went through and got all 12 offices, staff only, completely understanding the platform. At that point, then we went back to our first office that we trained and started incorporating the agents to it and went down the list from there. And that's what's helped with our successful rollout, is because we were able to take it in baby steps.
So this is just a curiosity question, but when you were doing when you were going from one platform to another platform, can I ask you what it was about the transaction room concept with DocuSign that made you say, okay, this is something we're interested in and this is unique?
Well, there were several things. We thought that it was going to be the ease of the platform. It seemed fairly easy to use. A lot of it had to do with support. That was key to us, is we needed to know that we had 24/7 support. And at the time, some of the other vendors were not able to provide that. So that was key. We are a company that has a very wide range of abilities. So we have agents who are, 21 years old and gung-ho and know all tech, and then we have agents who are in their mid to late 80s who have zero tech. They still handwrite everything. So it was understanding that we needed to touch all of them to the best of our ability, and what was going to be the easiest platform to use to do that. And we found through the testing process and the demos that definitely DocuSign Transaction Rooms was what was going to be the best fit for us.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's interesting. So talk to me about the training aspect of the integration.
So the training, once we decided, okay, we're going to start, I'm going to take a step back now for you guys. When we decided to start with our staff training, part of the lure of DocuSign is they do come in and they do live training for us, and we decided, okay, we're just going to do staff training for this. We're not going to bring in any agents. We're just going to do our entire support staff, which included branch managers, sales managers, office administrators, transaction coordinators, and bring everyone in and have this big presentation, and DocuSign sent someone out and they did the training. What I knew going into this was, you know what, it's great. People are 3 types of learners. You're either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. But you need all 3 of those in order to fully understand the process and how it works. So one of the things that I made very clear with our trainer was I need to have at least 3 hours at the end of our training where I'm going to create demo rooms for every person there at the training, and we are going to actually do mock transaction from beginning to end, because they need to be able to take everything that you just told them, everything you just showed them, and now they need to be able to execute that and implement that. So it was the reinforcement of everything that they just learned. They actually had to go and do it, and that was the turning point. That's what made everything work.
Yeah, that's totally how I learn. You can teach me and you can show me the video, but until I actually put my hands on the keyboard and do it, I don't get it. But once I've done it, I got it.
And plus we had DocuSign experts there to help us walk through. So I had already been through training. My transaction coordinator and office administrator at 2 of our other offices had already been through all the training. They had been beta testing it. So basically we had 6 to 7 people there who were kind of semi-experts. They were able to walk around with these people and answer the questions and say, oh, here, you know what, let me show you a shortcut. And just having someone up there talking and showing you how to do things, it would not have worked. We really needed to have that second part of the training of, you know what, now let's go ahead and practice what we just learned. Let's see if we can actually do it now. And
So
that
tell me
really,
what you go ahead, finish your sentence, sorry.
no, that's what really helped it stick and helped with the eventual implementation from office to office to office. And that's where we got the buy-in from all the staff.
Yeah.
They just thought, this is great. We get it now.
Clearly there's quite a thought process that goes into here. Talk to me about what you understand the 3 different levels of learning are, and then how specifically you would appeal in a learning environment each of the different 3.
So the visual part of it, we had slides going, we had a live demo, so we were actually going through, the transaction room, so that gave them the visual part of it. The auditory kind of, they go hand in hand. You had someone up there talking them through it. This is what you do in this step, this is what you do here, this is how you move this is how you do that, and just kind of walking it through from the very beginning to the very end. The kinesthetic part of it is where they actually now are able to take and bring out their computers, log into DTR, go through and upload a document, split a document. They were able to do everything that we had just talked about and actually now physically do it. And that's where the kinesthetic part of it comes in, and that's oftentimes where we miss it, and that's really where a lot of people are learning. That's where the majority of people learn, is through the kinesthetic process. They need to actually be able to do what you're telling them to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. And this is kind of another slide talking about how you went through the program. You trained your staff first.
Right. And we made every office, we gave a champion to every office, and those people have very in-depth understanding of both DocuSign and GTR, so that if agents in that office have a problem, they know who that champion is and who to go to, and we have continual learning with those champions. We have quarterly sessions that go through and review, update them on any changes, new rollouts. So that's been kind of key in helping make sure that everyone is fully informed. And we also do, I don't believe in necessarily training, like I believe we teach people, we train animals. So we're really more about teaching these people how to do things and kind of changing their philosophy. And so we really do kind of have that teach the teacher program going. So we want to make sure that we have the right people in there who can also teach people how to do this. Our champions aren't always our teach the teacher people.
No, that makes sense. And I think there's some people that would argue with you that we have to train the animals. It's okay.
No, I'm not saying we don't have animals here, but
so that's kind of fun as you talk about that. So how has your training approach changed since you initially took on this key position, and now that you've been through this a few times? Is it very different than when you first started?
Not really. My background is in teaching, and I've always kind of done teaching. That's been every position I've had with every different job I've had has always had a teaching element to it, and that's always kind of been my passion. So it has evolved. It's adapted some. It's definitely become a little more technology-based, whereas before, I used to do a lot of handouts. Now everything is, let me just email you the PowerPoint. So I don't have as much of the handouts as I used to, but as far as evolving, we're always learning new stuff. So I try and incorporate, if I hear something interesting, like I loved Angela's the curve. So the change curve I think is great, So seeing stuff like that really does kind of sometimes takes me in a different direction on how I'm going to go start rolling out projects.
Yeah, I had the same thought when I thought about it. I've gone through the grief stages, and I've helped people deal with that. And when she put that up there, I thought I was looking at the same thing. But the more I researched and looked at that change curve, the more I realized there was ways that we could incorporate that into some of the adoption things we're doing, which is fascinating. And I love your insights and your willingness to share how you really make things work. Finding a champion, making sure you've got a go-to person in each office, I think that's huge. Having ongoing training, picking a company that has great training and support. And 24/7 is a big deal. Do you get, somebody put a note on here, they said, do you get English-speaking people in 24-hour support?
Yes and no. I mean, for the most part, yes. I can't say all of them all the time, but usually we've been pretty successful with getting English-speaking. And usually if there is a problem, I'm notified right away, and I communicate that to DocuSign, and they usually are pretty, they get right back to me and say, okay, they apologize for it. But to the best of my knowledge, I've only had one issue with our people, our agents calling in and asking for support.
Yeah, good. I mean, that's great. You're always going to have some problems.
Oh,
but, to have that few with as many people as you're rolling out with, I think says a lot about who they are and what they're doing.
yeah.
And if it's okay,
now, they were growing.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you go.
There were growing pains in the beginning when we were first rolling it out, and they were bombarded with a lot of phone calls. But once we got through that initial, I'd say 3 months, after that it was kind of much easier.
Yeah, as it is with most programs, I think that's absolutely true. Well, Dilbeck is lucky to have you, and you're lucky to be with a company that's has such a high level of interest in helping and training their people to become more effective in real estate. So it sounds like a great marriage. If it's okay with you, I'm going to ask you to stick around with me for a minute while we talk to Kiwa from DocuSign, and we'll probably have some questions for both of you as we get towards the end. Is that okay?
Sure, not a problem.
All right. So let's go. So let me just really quick give Kiwa a more formal introduction. I gave him a brief introduction at the beginning, but he's in charge of real estate customer success at DocuSign. What a great name. And besides being a Trekkie, Kiwa leads the team responsible for delivering an end-to-end world-class experience for all of DocuSign's real estate customers. And it's really interesting that real estate is only one or two verticals that DocuSign's even created a division for. And so that says a lot about their focus on helping their real estate partners. And he starts with onboarding customers, educating the customers immediately after purchasing the solutions. And he's got over 20 years of experience in software technology, and he's truly an expert in change management for real estate. And Kiwa, thanks for being here and sharing us some thoughts. There's a lot of comments on the question board asking us, hey, does anybody show me what a transaction room is or what DocuSign does? I'm like, okay, yeah, he's coming. Just wait. So here you are, and welcome.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. And, first off, I just want to recognize really the amazing work that Angela and Leanne have done for FC Tucker and Dilbeck, respectively. It is amazing work, and it's an amazing partnership. And, Leanne mentioned in terms of some of the growing pains, and, absolutely. But, one of the things that I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned is, DocuSign is continually iterating our customer experience and truly trying to drive world class. And so, as part of the feedback that we've gotten, especially from Leanne and Angela, our real estate support team is now all U.S. based in terms of specifically for real estate. So really happy to actually get some of that information and out to the users just based on feedback that we've heard and us trying to really improve the overall customer experience itself. And then lastly, right, I know you said I was a Trekkie, but I just want to also say that Angela and Leanne are Jedi masters of change. Right, it's not solely just training, but they really are masters at change management and driving change in the organization and doing it the right way. So it's a great recognition and acknowledgement of their work, great work.
Well, that was a beautiful tie-in. Well done. Hey, before you jump into the steps of adoption success, would you mind just giving me a quick overview of just give me a DocuSign. Here's what we're doing now. Here's what a transaction room is. If you don't have that in the slide, let's talk about it real quick, and then we'll talk about the adoption strategy.
Sure. I don't have that in the slide, but it's easy to talk to. So most people are familiar with our electronic signature, our DocuSign signature product. Right? It's really easy to use, sending documents that have been tagged for signatures and initials and dates, sending it out to users and just having them electronically sign anywhere, anytime, any place. Right? So it's a great tool. Well, the DocuSign Transaction Rooms is built on top of that platform. And what it is it's a tool to enable brokerages to manage the end-to-end real estate transaction process from lead to close. And so the ability to be able to create a listing within the room, manage and store all the documents that are necessary, such as seller's agreements and disclosures and all those things, and then sending them out to signatures electronically through an electronic envelope. So, not having the need to quote-unquote stuff a FedEx envelope and sending it overnight and costs associated with it. You can actually do it all within the room itself. And then from a brokerage point of view, the ability to really see all the transactions, the status of all their agent transactions, to see what they need to review. But the beauty also is compliance, making sure that All the documents that are necessary to close a deal are there. All the signatures are gathered. So it's just a great all-digital platform to be able to manage the end-to-end real estate transaction process.
And so I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that that's a great thing. But the purpose of the webinar really isn't about, implementing DocuSign. It's implementing any technology solution. And the principles we talk about, I think it's really important for everybody on the call to understand this, that the principles that that both Leanne and Angela talked about are not about DocuSign. They're about, hey, we have a widget that's a technology widget, and we have to create change in our organization, and here's the steps that we follow. And with your background as a change management expert, talk to us how we can be better at that. How do we actually get great adoption?
Right. So specifically with technology adoption, there are lots of frameworks out there in the universe that talk about change management and how to do it, but it doesn't necessarily talk about specifically technology and how to do it with technology. So, there's 3 steps that we have leveraged at DocuSign, but also with any technology adoptions or deployments that you can actually leverage. So first and foremost is change management, and I'll talk about it. There's a next slide that goes a little bit deeper in terms of it, but change management has a lot of components to it. And so the first thing that I want to make sure and mention is, it's not about just training, right? It's about actually managing change. One of the frameworks that we use is called ADKAR, and so you'll see that the first letters of each of these little boxes here with awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement is really using the ADKAR model. So when DocuSign does an onboarding effort and working and partnering with brokerages, we use this process. We use this framework. And the first one is awareness, right? And so, Leanne and Angela has mentioned a lot of this, but in terms of driving awareness, right, you asked the question, is there too much communication? And my answer also is aligning with both of them, it's never. There's never too much communication. You want to drive awareness in terms of, what's in it for the user, right? How are they going to be able to as an agent, make more money? How are they going to have a competitive advantage over other agents trying to sell the same property? And finally, a really high priority, how do you make happy customers, right? And so when you're looking at really the generation of the folks that are looking to purchase homes today, right? There's 75 million consumers in the U.S. today, and the millennials, so the millennials that are part of this group, will overtake the baby boomers this year in terms of purchasing the larger numbers of homes. And when you're also looking at digging deeper into the metric, 50% of millennials search on homes on their phones, and 26% of them end up buying a home, according to the NAR. And so making customers happy and really servicing the needs of customers in the way that they want to interact with agents in your brokerage is the best way to do it. So that awareness of what are the key benefits, not only for the brokerage, but really for the customer, are key. And then as you move forward, right, again, the desire, the with them, the what's in it for me, right, what is it really going to help me gain? Right, at the brokerage level, lots of things. I've already talked about compliance and visibility of the transactions, but also cost savings, right? The unnecessary need of having to print everything out and store it. The no longer having the need to send things out overnight. There's lots of the time your staff spends in doing a lot of the administrative tasks. Now you can actually do things through technology to manage that. Knowledge is the next stage. Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Well, now I just have a question for you. So in the ADNAR change management chart, as you're going through each of these things, one of the things that and then you just have to tell me where this fits in, is pain. And that, there has to be a pain point somewhere that gets people to actually do something. I don't know why it is that we're that way as a culture, that, some catastrophic event has to happen in order for us to want to go through this process to drive change. And so where does pain come into this to make the whole thing, sometimes I just have to put my finger in the pain to get someone to change.
Yeah, specifically around real estate, remembering the time when you lost a deal because you weren't able to execute fast enough. Right, because another brokerage ended up leveraging technology to drive a transaction faster. And so just remembering the time you lost a sale, the time you lost a customer, right? Your clients who are looking to purchase homes because you didn't have the ability to really meet the needs or the demands of how they want to work today in today's society. So that's the biggest thing is just understanding the fact that you can be a player doing things faster by driving a digital interaction with your consumers and really driving that through the entire process.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I didn't mean to jump in. Go back to your ability.
Yeah, so with knowledge, this has also been mentioned, right? Identifying change agents, change champions, cheerleaders, right? I won't go into all that and regurgitate it, but that's key. You got to make sure you got the right people and making sure that the right people have the right knowledge and making sure that the right knowledge, not only the application itself or the technology itself, but really the people who can, have the knowledge to compel, that have the knowledge to motivate. All those things are key in making sure that you have in your organization. Ability is the next stage in the ADKAR model. Practice, 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 right? There's coaching that is done effectively. You want to make sure that you have the right user groups or like users in the same training, so you don't have people that may be early adopters that will get bored because you're going at a certain pace that doesn't make sense for them. But the ability is making sure that you drive the right training to the right people at the right time. And this has already been said, the last piece, the reinforcement. But the reinforcement isn't just about continuous learning. The reinforcement is about recognition, right? Recognizing the people that have been successful, celebrating those wins, and doing it well. So these are the five keys to success in terms of how technology rollout can be done. The first is train the trainer, right? Leanne said it really best, right? It's not just training, it's teaching. I will go one step further. It's also not only teaching, but it's partnering, right? Partnering with people, making sure that you're enabling local experts to truly support your staff, and then be able to onboard new employees. Again, not just from a knowledge perspective, but truly from a motivation. And one of the things that I think is also key is instead of doing an all-out rollout, which I know that both Angela and Leanne had mentioned that this isn't how it's done, but get some early wins, right? Get some early adopters. Identify maybe a pilot office or a small pilot group of people that are really excited about technology, or that are really excited about the ability to make their lives easier by using a certain set of technology, but driving that through. So pilot office, pilot group. Support, making sure your internal subject matter experts are expertly trained. So I know that Leanne mentioned a lot of this in terms of her taking on this responsibility, but it's key, right? You have to have not only people who are knowledgeable, but people who are trained, but also people who are well respected within the organization, and doing it that way. Rollout, again, thoughtfully planned rollout. You don't have to do it all at one fell swoop. Parse it out. Right? There's never anything that we do in life that isn't a crawl, walk, run model. But do the same thing here. There's no timeline. Right? Just do it at the pace that you need to do it with the people that expect it in terms of the pace that they need it, and do it that way. And then follow up. Regular check-ins, ensuring success, making sure that the needs or the resources or training, follow-up, all those things are taken care of your staff. And if you do these 5 things in this order, it's a high rate of success in terms of it being done. The last piece is continuous learning. I use the lather, rinse, repeat, practice, practice, practice. It's the more practice that's there, the greater confidence that people gain in terms of using a certain technology. I've already mentioned recognizing success. It's key, right? A lot of this, again, isn't training on the technology. A lot of it is personality and how people emotionally are tied to this. But let's recognize it. Let's reward success, and let's use that to drive great behavior. And then award adoption for the people who have grasped it, who have accepted it. Award that. Show them, do a party, do whatever you need to do. You have certificates ready to go out. Right? This is all human nature. So I'm not telling you anything that isn't about just it's technology and that's all you have to focus on. But everyone's it's all people. It's all human nature. And the more that you can kind of emotionally tie success with the knowledge, the greater success you'll have.
That's absolutely true, and clearly you've done this more than once. As you've gone through doing some of these different integrations with different companies of all different sizes, we used a couple of great companies with Billback and with FC Tucker. What are some other successes that you've seen, and also what are some of the challenges you've seen? Where have you seen people that they're willing to spend the money for a product, but they're not willing to do the integration process? Where have you seen failure? I don't you need to mention companies, just examples.
Yeah, I'll mention a couple of companies. And so number one is, we definitely have partners for a lot of different organizations, brokerages, and franchises. And so here's one. With NextHome, We partner very closely with them in terms of the rollout, and we went through the change management model and the readiness, and they truly adopted, right? They made sure their agents and their brokers were taken care of. And so there was a very methodical rollout in terms of regions, as well as offices that I thought were alike in terms of not only technology savviness, but also workflows. It made sense. They created an amazing support structure where they had subject matter experts locally, as well as I'll call it a 1-800 number where Next Home folks could call into and get support. And then also the continuous learning, right? A lot of the videos and assets that my team has produced that are generally about 60 seconds long, right? We know that people generally don't like to sit around and watch a 1-hour video, right? But all these videos were posted on their internet portal. So people were able to self-serve and get access to information that, for those users who like videos, great. And if not, right, we have continuous follow-up in terms of webinars. So NextHome did an amazing job. A couple of other brokerages within the RE/MAX community with RE/MAX Renaissance and RE/MAX Ability Plus, they were able to, really truly reduce, they were looking for what the key benefits are. And by adoption of technology, they were able to reduce their transactions from days to hours, drive visibility, not worry about compliance, et cetera. So there's a lot of success being done. In terms of challenges, you're right. Sometimes, organizations, brokerages will purchase a technology product and then not really worry about what the day two looks like, right? What does support look like? What does training look like? And, the assumption that, people know technology, right? Again, Leanne and Angela mentioned it. You got lots of different users out there that may not be technology savvy or do it at a different pace and just need a little bit more hand-holding. And that's key, is to identify the different personas that are in the organizations and making sure you cater to them. And so some of the, the lack of success is the fact that personas aren't identified and that everyone is treated as, the same size and shape.
I appreciate your insights and thoughts from everybody, and I want to remind everybody that they can get a copy of today's webinar as well as the notes from the deck and these valuable giveaways. We've got a training guide with case studies and data from Transaction Room User's Guide. We also have a simple guidelines from FC Tucker and their DocuSign handbook of what they do to create the integration and the setup process. And the reason we're giving you these is not so you buy DocuSign, it's so you understand the process that people go through when they create a successful implementation or execution of a technology product. Now, as a side note, as DocuSign is a great partner of ours, we appreciate their input and we appreciate you taking a look at what they have to offer. It makes sense that when you see great companies doing great things, one of my secrets to success is I'm constantly looking for people who do it better than me and I copy them. And I think that we've been led by some people that have been willing to share some great ideas that we can all copy to have better integrations in our business. So I appreciate all of you for being here. As a final thought, if I could just ask each one of you a simple question, if there was one thing that you wish you would have known or that you would advise people when they take on a new project or a technology integration, what's that single piece of advice that you would give them? And let's start with Leanne.
I would have to say you're going to have failures. Just be prepared for that. And but the thing is that those failures can turn around and be great opportunities, which is what we found out. I mean, we failed in a lot of things along the way, but in the end, they turned out to be successes.
Thank you. Awesome. Angela?
I would say for us, the thing that I wish I had known early on in the process was that there's going to come a point when you're making the change where you go from having a small number of users to a large number of users, and you have to have specific processes in place for that, because as the number of your users goes up, new and exciting issues are going to come up. And I would say we were not prepared as well as we could have been for that had we recognized that that was part of that change transition, was that kind of the bulk users will bring new issues to light that maybe you can't predict, but at least you're more nimble on your feet when they happen.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent. And Kiwa, final thought?
Sure. I'm going to say two things. Sorry, I know you said one. but thoughtfully plan and set clear expectations. And so I cannot stress, how important it is to do all your homework up front and take your time, right? Again, there's no rush in terms of driving deployment and adoption in terms of technology, but taking the time to do all your homework, planning things out the way that you need to, making sure everything's in place, and then go ahead and start the deployment and the adoption and the training. Because if you try to do it quickly and you don't have the thoughtful planning in place, right, you're going to probably encounter a lot more errors and issues up front that will, take away from the buy-in that you're trying to generate here. So plan, and go from there.
On behalf of all of our guests today, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate RISMedia's automated content engagement as being one of our premier sponsors, and make sure that you check out their content solutions they have for brokerages of all sizes at DocuSign. And from those of us at Workman Success Systems who are all about change and helping people integrate and build team solutions for their companies, we want to thank you all for being here, and we wish you the greatest amount of success with your next big technology integration. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you all soon.